I want you to do something uncomfortable. Think about the last person who broke your trust. Remove everything they said. Remove the promises. Remove the chemistry. Remove how they made you feel. What's left? Just patterns. Just behavior. Just the version of them reality was trying to show you. Would that version have earned your trust? Or did your mind do what it always does? Fill the gap between who they were and who you needed them to be? Because that's the moment everything changes. Not when they betrayed you, not when they left, not when they rejected you. Much earlier. The second you start needing them to be different from who they consistently are, you stop seeing clearly. That is where romanticizing begins. And once that happens, getting hurt is no longer bad luck. It becomes predictable. Here is the disturbing part. Most people think romanticizing begins when you start loving someone too much. No, it starts much earlier. It starts the moment you stop dealing with facts. Let me show you how subtle this is. They disappear for 2 days. Reality says they are inconsistent. Your mind says they're probably busy. Small difference, massive consequence. They struggle to communicate. Reality says they are emotionally unavailable. Your mind says they're just guarded. Again, small difference, massive consequence. They keep giving you effort in crumbs. Reality says this person is showing limited investment. Your mind says no. They care deep down. Do you see the pattern yet? You are not processing reality. You are translating reality. And every translation bends in the direction of what you want to believe. That is romanticizing. Not love, not kindness. Distortion. Anais Nin said something brutal. We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. Most people hear that quote and think it sounds deep. No, it is dangerous. Because if you are lonely, you don't see people clearly. You see hope. If you are emotionally hungry, you don't see patterns clearly. You see potential. And if you need someone badly enough, you can watch red flags in real time and still call them green. That is the part nobody wants to admit. Your greatest vulnerability is not toxic people. It is your ability to emotionally edit what is right in front of you. You keep the moments that feed the fantasy. You delete the ones that threaten it. And the worst part? Your brain thinks it is helping you. Because truth can feel brutal. Truth can mean they do not care. Truth can mean rejection. Truth can mean being alone. So the mind offers something softer. Maybe they'll change. Maybe you just need patience. Maybe the version you see is the real them. No, most people consume content that protects those illusions. This channel does the opposite. It destroys them. Subscribe, because if you stay here long enough, you will start seeing what most people train themselves not to see. Here's something I've never believed. People don't ignore red flags. Not really. Ignoring something means you never noticed it. That's rarely what happens. You noticed it. You just refused to let it mean what it meant. Think about that. Every time someone disappointed you, your mind immediately started building a defense case. They've just been stressed. They didn't mean it. They've been through a lot. Interesting, isn't it? The evidence never changed, only the explanation did. That's the moment you stop acting like an observer and quietly become their lawyer. You stop asking, what does this behavior say about them? And start asking, how can I make this behavior make sense? That question has trapped more people than manipulation ever has. Because once you're defending someone's patterns, your judgment is no longer working for you. It's working for them. And that's why the biggest red flag isn't dishonesty. It isn't inconsistency. It isn't emotional manipulation. It's the moment you stop trusting the discomfort your own mind is trying to warn you with. Everything after that becomes predictable, and something else changes, something most people never notice until it's too late. You're no longer building a relationship with the person standing in front of you. Without realizing it, you've started building one with tomorrow. Tomorrow they'll communicate better. Tomorrow they'll become emotionally available. Tomorrow they'll finally appreciate you. Notice what's happened. The real person slowly disappears and gets replaced by a future version that has never existed. That's why potential is so dangerous. It never has to prove itself. It only has to promise. And every promise buys more time. Enough time for another excuse, another chance, another month, sometimes another year. People think betrayal breaks hearts. Sometimes it does. But potential has broken far more. Because betrayal eventually forces you to face reality. Potential convinces you to postpone it. If this made you recognize a pattern you've lived through, or someone else's, leave a like and share this video with them. Some people don't need another comforting lie. They need one uncomfortable truth before they lose another year to a person who only exists in their imagination. And this is where the balance changes. Not because they become more powerful, because you become easier. Think about it. The moment someone realizes you'll keep rewriting their behavior, what reason do they have to change it? They don't have to become more consistent. You'll explain the inconsistency. They don't have to communicate better. You'll finish the conversation for them in your own head. They don't even have to earn your trust anymore. You've already given it away. That's how power quietly moves from one person to the other. Not in one dramatic moment. In 100 small compromises. One excuse, one more chance, one more time telling yourself this isn't who they really are. Notice who you've been negotiating with all this time. Not them, yourself. Every boundary became a debate. Every standard became flexible. Every instinct needed permission before you believed it. Paulo Coelho once wrote, "When you say yes to others, make sure you are not saying no to yourself." Most people hear that and think about people-pleasing. Look closer. Every time you protected the fantasy, what were you sacrificing? Your peace, your standards, your self-respect. You weren't just saying yes to them. You were quietly saying no to yourself. And here's what makes this even more dangerous. People don't have to manipulate someone who keeps manipulating themselves. Sometimes all they have to do is keep showing up just enough to stop you from walking away. Not enough to build a relationship. Just enough to keep the possibility alive. And that possibility becomes its own prison. Because after a while, you're no longer waiting for them. You're waiting for the next moment that makes everything make sense again. The next text, the next apology, the next good day, the next sign that all your patience wasn't wasted. It feels like you're holding on to a person. You're not. You're holding on to a moment that hasn't happened yet. That's why walking away feels so difficult. You're not leaving certainty behind. You're leaving possibility. And possibility is addictive because it keeps whispering the same sentence. Maybe tomorrow. The hardest truth in this entire conversation is this. You are not attached to who they are. You are attached to what finally being chosen by them would say about you. Because if they finally choose you, finally change, finally love you the way you've imagined, then every excuse, every compromise, every year you invested suddenly feels justified. That's why letting go feels like losing part of yourself. Not because they were everything, because you made them the proof that you were enough. And that is exactly where people lose the most power. Have you ever noticed what your mind does after someone is gone? It doesn't replay reality. It starts rewriting it. Suddenly you're remembering the good conversations, not the confusing ones, the moments they made you feel seen, not the moments they made you question yourself. Strange, isn't it? Even after they're gone, your mind is still protecting the same story. Then something even stranger happens. You don't just miss them. You start missing moments that never actually happened. The trip you thought you'd take. The life you thought you'd build. The version of them you kept waiting to meet. Pause there. None of those things existed. So why do they hurt like memories? Because your mind doesn't only grieve what was real, it grieves whatever it emotionally invested in. That's why heartbreak can feel bigger than the relationship itself. You weren't just losing a person. You were losing the evidence you hoped would one day prove that all your waiting had meant something. And that is a frightening realization. Because it means the hardest thing to let go of was never them. It was the story. Now notice what happens the first time you stop telling yourself that story. It feels wrong, not because the truth is wrong, because your hope has nowhere left to live. That's why clarity feels so cruel. It doesn't destroy the relationship. It destroys the escape route. Reality asks for one painful decision. Fantasy asks for endless postponement. One more excuse, one more conversation, one more month. Ask yourself something. What's one red flag you recognized immediately, but spent weeks trying to explain away? Keep it to one sentence in the comments. The first pattern people admit is rarely the one that hurt them the most. It's usually the one they defended the longest. Maybe the real lesson was never about other people. Maybe it was about the version of you that kept asking reality to become something it never was. Because once you see this, you start noticing it everywhere. You stop listening only to words. You start watching patterns. You stop falling in love with promises. You start asking whether those promises have ever become habits. You stop trying to rescue someone's potential. You become curious about their character. That's the shift. Not becoming colder, becoming harder to deceive. Not because people changed, because the way you see them changed. Centuries before psychologists began studying perception, Solomon understood something about the human heart. He wrote in Proverbs, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Most people hear that as a warning about emotions. I hear something else. Don't let your heart decide what is true. Let truth decide what your heart deserves. And if there's one thing I hope stays with you after this video, it's this. The second you stop romanticizing people, you stop asking them to become someone they have never been. You stop bargaining with evidence. You stop waiting for potential to become character. You stop mistaking longing for love. And something very quiet begins to happen. You stop needing reality to comfort you. You become strong enough to let reality correct you. That's the moment people lose the power to keep disappointing you. Not because they suddenly become better, but because, for the first time, you finally see them as they are. Don't let this become another insight that fades by tomorrow. The next video on your screen will take this one step further. Watch it now. Subscribe, then work through the full playlist. Because seeing clearly isn't a single decision. It's a discipline. And every time you choose reality over fantasy, you stop getting hurt